So what would you say are some of the key benefits then of Google App Campaigns? And then we can get to some of the drawbacks that, and we've already kind of discussed some of them.
Whenever I talk about Google, you really have to talk about it for Android and for iOS. I feel like with Meta, people, they don't really care too much, or I don't notice people, sort of like separating the two and talking about them separately. But I feel with app campaigns, or I'll just say UAC, it is really critical because on Android, you have the benefit of actually serving your ads in the Play Store. That's like super high intent. You cannot get that inventory anywhere else, right? So that just doesn't exist. You can't buy it. It's not like part of another network. So I think that's really the main advantage of UAC when it comes to Android. And also there's a lot of other properties, right? You have Google Search and YouTube. So there's a lot more that you can leverage there too, but by and far the Play Store is huge. On iOS, yeah, like Google's actually not as competitive, but I really don't feel it can be overlooked. You still have Google Search, which again, you can't buy search from anywhere else. And you have YouTube, which still is like the number one app. It's like the most downloaded app in the world, I think, not just in the US. So those two pockets of inventory are really, those are huge for you to be able to access and be able to advertise your app.
And this is one of the things about Meta and why a lot of apps are finding success right now is that between the Facebook app and the Instagram app, you're just getting such broad exposure. But then Google takes it even like multiple steps further, like YouTube inside the Play Store, across search, across their display ad networks. Like it's just a massive scale that is hard to access in any other way. What would you say then are some of the drawbacks that come to mind with UAC?
Going back to the controls, it can be really challenging if you're testing in particular. If you're like, oh, I really want to see how these videos perform. On Android, it is really challenging to try and get your videos to get any meaningful traffic. People can do it, right? And it depends on the vertical of your app. But again, you have the Play Store. It's going to be really high converting traffic. I always liken the Play Store traffic to branded search. Like when we talk about, when you used to have your, branded keywords, right? It's like you're reaching people at the highest intent moment possible when they're actually searching for something. They want something. And that's kind of what the Play Store is too. They're grabbing them right at that last minute. Being able to really diversify where your ads are showing, that can be a big challenge. Or the opposite of trying to force and get traffic somewhere else, getting it away. Like I was talking with a client yesterday, all of their traffic's flowing to display. And we're like, how can we force it over here? And, aside from really paying a lot more, like manipulating your bids, which isn't always feasible, that can be a big drawback. And so I think a lot of people despise Google's products for that reason.
But as we were kind of pointing out, it's like it's all trade-offs. So you trade off some of that control for reach, for the high intent, things like that. And we've kind of been hitting on this already, but any other contrasts you want to paint between UAC and the other major kind of user acquisition channels, TikTok, Meta, Apple search ads?
Oh, yeah. I think one thing that people look at is a lot of people are like, oh, it's an app network, right? We're using that product to distribute our app. But you have to think about it. Let's just use Meta as the primary example. They have their two main sources of traffic are Facebook and Instagram, right? And most of that is app specific. I mean, if you're doing an app campaign, it's just going to serve there. On Google, let's talk about like the 5 primary sources of traffic that you get with your Android campaign. You have the Play Store, you have Google Search, which is mostly done in a browser. It's not like in an app. Okay, so it's in a browser. You have YouTube, which is probably pretty heavy on app, but there actually is still quite a bit of it that happens in a browser. You have AdMob traffic, which is ads in other apps. That's part of Google's network. And then you have what they call MGDN, which is mobile Google Display Network, which is ads in browsers, on websites, mobile websites. So a lot more of Google's mobile traffic is served in browser in comparison to these other like app native platforms like a Meta or a TikTok, right? That's just like doesn't exist on web. And so you have to really consider that. And that's the piece that you really have to understand, especially when it comes to iOS. That's why Google, I think, had so many challenges for a long time. SKAN network wasn't even counting web to app conversions. This was like, we had cases of some clients where 99% of their traffic was coming from search, and SKAN wasn't capturing any of those conversions, like 0 of them. Now with the SKAN 4.0, that has changed, but there's still a lot of limitations, and I don't think people realize like how unique Google's platform is compared to some of the other big players.
And one of the things you had shared previously, we did a webinar, which, by the way, the webinar might be a good adjunct to this if you want to get back and listen to Ashley's webinar. She has slides and all that. So kind of a nice complement to this conversation. But you also mentioned Play Browse. So within the Play Store, you can actually buy ads where if people are browsing around looking for apps, they're going to see those ads. Is that serve much traffic, and does that perform well?
Nobody knows, David. This is the thing. That's the thing. That's the other reason why people don't like this, is because you have really limited visibility into where your ads are showing. So in the Google ads, like in the front end, if you're looking and you're managing your campaigns, you'll be able to see a breakout of the 4 different inventory sources. So you can see they lump it as search traffic, search network, search partners, which usually is like a really small percentage. If it's high, that should be a warning sign to you. And then there's this other one called Google Display Network, and that's what we'll talk about in just a sec. And then there's YouTube. But again, what people don't realize is like what's included in those. So if we're talking about search, yes, it searches on google.com, but it's also searches in Play. Well, you don't have a way of seeing the breakout. If you have a really good, I always tell people, like, if you have a really good Google rep, you can. They do have the ability to see it. They have to have the right access, but they can show you the breakout. So there's google.com searches, there's Play search, and that's all included in search. And then when we talk about the display network, that is the AdMob traffic a lot of times. It's the MGDN, which I was talking about. It's like website images or ads. And then it also can include Play Browse. That's the tricky part, is like you're trying to figure out, oh, okay, well, is this not working because of this, or is this happening? You're making a lot of assumptions about things. And so a lot of times it can be hard because you're a little bit blind to what's actually at play.
But overall, the combination of all these things and Google's algorithm that tries to figure out where things are going to be performant, it does seem like overall it is a high quality source of, and especially on Android, potentially very high intent traffic as well.
Absolutely.